Thank you for attending the webinar today on Strengthening America's Supply Chain Together. My name is Lillian Sumwall. I am with the Great Falls Apex Accelerator Office along with Shannon Clancy. This Apex Accelerator is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the Department of Defense. Today, we will be looking at DPA Title III and Industrial Base Analysis and Sustainment, IBAS programs. We'll be looking at what they are, why it matters, and how it benefits small business. Please take the time to put your name or the name of your business in the chat. I will answer questions at the end of the webinar. The screen or slides will also be available to attendees after the conclusion of the webinar. So, a little history on DPA Title III. The Defense Production Act of 1950 is a United States federal law enacted on September 8, 1950, in response to the start of the Korean War. It was part of a broad civil defense and war mobilization effort used during the Korean War to establish a large defense mobilization infrastructure and bureaucracy. Under the authority of the Act, President Harry S. Truman established the Office of Defense Mobilization. He also instituted wage and price controls and strictly regulated production in heavy industries such as steel and mining. Truman also prioritized and allocated industrial materials in short supply. The DPA was also used to ensure that government-funded industries were geographically dispersed across the United States to prevent the industrial base from being destroyed by a singular nuclear attack. This was part of a broad civil defense and war mobilization effort in the context of the Cold War. The original act included 7 titles that allowed the president to seize private property under Title II, fix wages and prices, and implement rationing of goods under Title IV, use force to settle labor disputes under Title V, and control real estate credit under Title VI. The Act accelerated industry by playing a vital role in the establishment of the domestic aluminum and titanium industries in the 1950s. Using the Act, DoD provided capital and interest-free loans and directed mining and manufacturing resources, as well as skilled laborers, to these 2 processing industries. Excuse me. During the late 1960s and early 1970s, the DPA was increasingly used to diversify U.S. energy by funding the Trans-Alaskan Pipeline, the U.S. Synthetic Fuels Corporation, and research into liquefied natural gas. Beginning in the 1980s, the DoD began using the contracting and spending provisions of the DPA to provide seed money to develop new technologies. DoD has used the Act to help develop a number of new technologies and materials, including silicon carbide ceramics, semiconductors, microwave power tubes, radiation-hardened microelectronics, superconducting wire, metal composites, and the mining and processing of rare earth minerals. In 1994, President Bill Clinton invoked the law to implement national security resources preparedness during disasters under the advisement of the FEMA director. The order allows FEMA to work with other federal departments to order producers and distributors to prioritize resources in preparation of and in times of disaster. The information for this can be found at www.govinfo.gov. In January of 2001, President Clinton invoked the law to force gas suppliers to continue to supply Pacific Gas and Electric Company, the largest California energy provider, and to supply them with gas regardless of loss as a result of suppliers shutting off gas supplies due to PG&E's non-payment during the 2000-2001 California electricity crisis. The order was later rescinded under the George W. Bush administration, but resulted in the expansion of blackouts in California for several months and P&G's bankruptcy. In 2011, President Barack Obama invoked the law to force telecommunication companies under criminal penalties to provide detailed information to the Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security on the use of foreign manufactured hardware and software in the company's network as part of efforts to combat Chinese cyber espionage. Since the 1950s, the act has been reauthorized over 50 times. It has been periodically amended and remains in force. The original act included 4 other titles that are expired and repealed. Although the president can no longer fix wages and prices of goods, the president can still prevent hoarding and selling of designated items in excess of prevailing market prices. This is under Title I in Section 102 of the Defense Production Act. The act currently contains 3 major sections. The first, Title I, broadly contains the priorities and allocation authority. The priority authority allows the federal government to ensure the timely availability of critical materials and services produced in the private market in the interest of national defense. It also allows the government to receive items through contracts before any other competing interest. The allocation authority gives the president the power to allocate or control general distribution of materials, services, and facilities. I thought it was interesting that DoD is the most frequent user of Title I, using it to insert priority clauses into its federal contracts. These provisions require contractors to give the Pentagon preference over all other customers in delivering goods or services. I'm going to skip over Title III because that will be the main part of our webinar, and move on to Title VII. This authorizes the president to control the civilian economy so that scarce and critical materials necessary to the national defense effort are available for defense needs. So what is DPA Title III? It's a program dedicated to ensuring the timely availability of essential domestic industrial resources to support national defense and homeland security requirements. The program works in partnership with the Uniformed Services, other government agencies, and industry to identify areas where critical industrial capacity is lagging or essentially non-existent. It's located at the Office of the Assistant Secretary of Defense. Just as the President delegated his Title I authorities, he also delegated his Title III authorities to his HHS and DHS secretaries. Department of Homeland Security is involved because it controls FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Now, both HHS and DHS can make direct investments in U.S. corporations to increase their capacity. DPA Title III offers a powerful, non-traditional way for companies to do business with the federal government. Under Title III, it authorized the president to establish mechanisms such as regulations, orders, or agencies to allocate materials, services, and facilities to promote national defense. These mechanisms provide grants and loans to develop, maintain, and expand domestic production capacity for resources needed for national defense. Because of DPA Title III, contractors may receive loans, direct investments, purchase commitments, and other assistance to help address actual or projected shortfalls in the domestic supply of certain industrial resources and critical technology items. This slide goes more into depth on these authorities and priority areas. Take a minute to review this slide. I would also like to mention the IBIS program because it fits with DPA Title III. What is Industrial Base Analysis and Sustainment, IBIS program? Well, it's located in the Innovation Capability and Modernization Office, located under the Assistant Secretary of Defense. You can see the link below to go to this page. This program is statutorily based, or a law, found in 10 U.S. Code 4817 and is titled Industrial Base Fund IBIS Authorities. This law states that the IBIS program is to support the monitoring and assessment of the industrial base, to address critical issues in the industrial base relating to urgent operational needs, to support efforts to expand the industrial base, and to address supply chain vulnerabilities. Purpose of IBIS. So IBIS's mission is to strengthen the competitive posture of the U.S. Defense Industrial Base, or DIB for short, in the area of great powers and global competition. Its vision: a modern industrial base that fortifies traditional DIB capabilities and forges emerging sectors to respond at will to national security requirements. Its priorities: prepare the defense industrial workforce, How is the program gonna do that? Promote, elevate, and accelerate industrial talent pipelines. Ready the modern DIB. How? Advance and sustain traditional defense manufacturing sectors. Also, prepare for the future. How? Identify, attract, and cultivate emerging defense sectors. Assess and shape the risk. How? By mitigating supply chain vulnerabilities within the global DIB. Build and strengthen partnerships. Where? Across the global DIB. Back in June of 2021, the Secretary of Defense, in consultation with the heads of appropriate agencies, published a report on supply chains for the defense industrial base. It was a 100-day review under Executive Order 14017. The report identified areas where civilian supply chains are dependent upon competitor nations, as determined by the Secretary of Defense. The report was titled Building Resilient Supply Chains, Revitalizing American Manufacturing, and Fostering Broad-Based Growth. Deputy Secretary Hicks said, by modernizing our approach to supply chain resilience, DoD can deliver decisive advantages to our warfighter in a dynamic threat landscape. In the report, they showed how they are going to do that. This is a copy of the 100-day supply chain review. As you can see, they have included small business in this review. This was a graph included in that report that shows how they are going to modernize the supply chain. This graph shows the military and defense agency teams, the contract vehicles, projects showing industrial base sectors, and communities of interest. The outcomes to the federated approach will be to extend IBIS program reach and resources to produce great impacts. As you can see under projects, there are a bunch of different areas that are highlighted, such as materials, workforce skills, machine tools, electronics, advanced technology, and advanced manufacturing. Why does it matter? Looking at the history of DPA and current DPA Title III and IBIS priorities, we can see that these are crucial tools. The U.S. government can use these tools to address supply chain vulnerabilities, support domestic industry, and ensure the availability of critical materials and resources during times of national emergency or when national security interests are at stake. It enables the government to enter into contracts and provide financial support to strengthen the supply chain and industrial base. This is vital for the security and resilience of the country. It matters in the context of small business because, as it showed on the previous slides, the modernization of the supply chain report includes small business. It provides a way for the government to support and collaborate with small businesses to enhance the supply chain and address shortages. It can be a valuable tool for promoting innovation and strengthening the involvement of small business in federal procurement efforts. Here is the website that shows open opportunities for DPA Title III. Also, if you click on the additional resources link, it will take you to the current funding opportunity announcement, or FOIA. In July 2019, the Defense Production Act Title III Program Office, working with the Air Force Research Laboratories, Materials and Manufacturing Directorate, issued a funding opportunity announcement to select proposals for production technology projects. The link on the bottom of the slide takes you to this page. The funding opportunity is located on sam.gov. The FOIA is in effect until July 12, 2024, this year, and is divided into two paths to allow for maximum flexibility and increased industry engagement. The first path is the open FOIA. This allows for white papers to be submitted by industry at any time. Submitted white papers are on a topic of industry's choosing. However, they must line up within one of the DPA Title III's focus areas. They are sustainment of critical production, commercialization of research and development investments, and scaling of emerging technologies. The second path is the FOIA with calls, in which calls for proposals may be issued by the government to industry. These calls represent vetted and validated government requirements that line up with one of the three focus areas I previously mentioned. By adopting a two-path model, the DPA Title III program is able to pursue ideas from both government and industry and address specific topics for proposals. So how does it benefit small business? One way is it can lead to increased contracting opportunities. When the government invokes Title III to address critical shortages or strengthen key industry, it often enters into contracts with various suppliers, including small businesses, to produce essential materials, goods, or technologies. Small businesses that engage in manufacturing may benefit from these incentives and be more competitive in federal contracting opportunities. Small businesses involved in innovative research and development projects may receive funding or contracts to develop and produce new technologies because a lot of innovation comes from small business. And last but not least, small business can also help agencies in meeting socioeconomic goals. If you would like more information on DPA Title III opportunities or other APEX services, please reach out to your local APEX office. Just go to montanaapex.org. Well, that ends the presentation. Thank you for attending our webinar today.